Hi, this is Scott Garibay, and today we're going to talk about Dungeons and Dragons, and we're going to talk about the possibility, in my humble opinion, of dungeon masters coming to save the world, doing things that need to be done that no one else has the standing to do, right? And setting a pattern that will be massively helpful for humanity going forward. All right, so by retiring words. All right, let's jump into this. Okay, so it is my new understanding. I am an adventurer, okay? I delve the dungeon of Dungeons and Dragons present, and I think I'm deeper into the dungeon than I'm like a gloom stalker. Like I am so deep into Dungeons and Dragons. Honestly, I think the closest person to me in the world is 3 levels above me in the dungeon, right? I'm farther out, there are people who went to Antarctica, right? And kind of like did this exciting thing where, they went to a place that no one else went. I believe I'm deeper into the present of Dungeons and Dragons than anyone on the planet. And my new understanding is, this is the question I never stop answering because I don't think it's answered. I think we'll be unpacking this for 3 centuries. I think in 3 centuries, we'll have a solid understanding of what Gary Gygax actually established when he released the first Dungeons and Dragons white box in 1974. Okay, so let's get into it. Okay, so basically, what is Dungeons and Dragons? I've said many things that Dungeons and Dragons is. The biggest thing I've been thinking is it is the most powerful secular tool to explore identity, and the most powerful catalyst to change human narrative that's ever existed. It's massively important. But what I'm realizing now is Dungeons and Dragons is a bridge. It is a bridge to identity, it is a bridge to narrative, and it is a bridge to language. That's new. So it's a tool for human flourishment. Right now what I'm saying is Dungeons and Dragons is a special bridge, okay, that gives first a dungeon master and first a Dungeons and Dragons player a bridge to identity that other people on the planet do not have, and a bridge to narrative, to use stories in ways that no other human is able to use stories, to bring more value, more impact, more meaning to stories than any shaman was ever able to accomplish, any big screen or small screen writer was ever able to accomplish. Anyone who has ever told a story is below a bog standard dungeon master and a Dungeons and Dragons player. Shakespeare is nothing next to the dungeon master who lives 3 houses to your left. Right? There's more importance on the dungeon master who lives 3 houses to your left than Shakespeare ever accomplished. His work is antiquated and meaningless today compared to what Gary provisioned. Okay? But here's the new understanding. Dungeons and Dragons is a bridge to language. And dungeon masters right now are using language in ways that no human has ever used language. And Dungeons and Dragons players are using language in ways that no other humans have used language. This is not recognized by anyone but me yet. That's okay. You guys catch up. I told you 3 years ago that Dungeons and Dragons was more than a game and actually could be used to better yourself. Now Keys of Kymoria are coming out probably in another month or 2, and that game is literally therapeutic dungeon mastering. It's, very parallel, not exactly what I said, but very parallel to what I was, taught. So, and you guys will catch up 3-4 years from now and understand that Dungeons and Dragons is a bridge to language. So, how do dungeon masters save the world by doing things that have never been done and establishing a new language format, a new language action? Okay. And the first thing we do is we retire a word. This has never been done in the history of humanity. People don't retire words. What happens is words fall into antiquation, right? Words are antiquated, right? So there's lots of words that are just super old and people don't use them anymore, right? But there's a problem, right? Right now, people are using a specific word. We're going to get to it in a moment. And they're using that word as though it still has meaning, and the meaning is gone. And the actual meaning, when they use the word, they're using it as an insult, but the reality is it's actually an exaltation, right? But people don't. But Americans don't. By the way, we're going to do this in America because pretty much everything of significance is done in America first, and then other countries copy it. You guys can catch up. Let me know if there's countries that are doing something that America should catch up to. I think there's only one example right now, and that is South Korea has defeated America in choreography and dance. I don't think there's any other examples where any country in the world is doing anything better than America. I'd love to hear your counterpoint to that. Hit me up in the comments below. All right, so basically, we need to start retiring words, and this is massively important. And the reason why is, I don't know if you okay, Andrew Yang just said it, right? He talked about AI broad language platforms, right? And essentially made creators, right? So like ChatGPT, artificial intelligences that are fully manifested at this point, right? And he said, we've been doing repetitive manual for a while. We have lots of robots in factories that are, building cars, right? That's old hat. We've been doing it for 30 years. But what's happening right now with ChatGPT is repetitive cognitive, right? So ChatGPT is I think it's already happened. I think it's already replaced like 100 to 1,000 lawyers, right? Because they do repetitive cognitive, right? And so basically, it's really interesting. We get to this point where all that to say, the manual world's finished. The manual world is trivial, right, to Americans. All that matters is knowledge. Manual work does not matter in America, right? It's a trivial task that's paid dirt money, right? Knowledge work is massively important, and it's paid top dollar in America. We've transitioned from manual being important to manual being trivial, and knowledge work is now the top tier type of work in America. So when you are living in a world, when you're living in a nation, the last superpower, okay? We are the last superpower, no two ways about that. A lot of people thought that Russia was a superpower. Clearly they're not. Zelensky handled Vladimir Putin with a green t-shirt and our surplus weapons. Sorry, Russia no longer a superpower. No, they're not even a regional power, right? So America is the last superpower. So when you live in the last superpower nation, right, that has shifted to knowledge work as the top tier, then language is massively important, right? And so we need this language action. We need to be able to retire a word, right? Now, right now, no words can be retired, right? They just fall into antiquation because no one has the standing, the courage, the confidence. Nobody has the charisma, the confidence, and the intelligence to end a word, to retire a word, right? Nobody's done it ever, right? But dungeon masters are perfectly positioned to do it, and we have the standing, perfect standing to do it on one word. All right, so what is that word? Nerd, right? People are, so Dungeons & Dragons Honor Among Thieves is coming, 0 spoilers, and there's a lot of reviews coming out, and I'm still hearing the word nerd attached to Dungeons & Dragons, right? And they say this like, oh, nerd, right? Like there's something to laugh at, right? And I'm like, no, you don't understand, right? So nerd no longer functions for what it. So let's define nerd as it is used today, and let me explain exactly why it's absolutely critical that nerd is retired immediately by dungeon masters and how we'll do it. All right, here we go. Okay, what did nerd mean? It meant loser. It meant genre-focused loser who cannot get a date and gets their books knocked out of their hand on the way home from school, and got their books knocked out of their hands on the way home. Okay, that's the definition of nerd, right? Genre-focused, science fiction and fantasy, nerd, genre-focused loser, okay, who who cannot get a date and gets their books knocked out of their hand, gets their books knocked out of their hand on the way home from school. Okay? Now, why is this no longer functional? I can tell you right now. right? We are genre focused. That didn't change, but we're no longer losers. We the winners. It's a knowledge-based world, right? Right? I'm putting this nail in. I'll make $12 an hour. And then I wrote the sentence. I make $80 an hour. We ain't the losers anymore. And because we can get paid, we can get dates, right? And then the last part, your books get knocked out of your hand when you're going to school, or when you were going to school, or as you're doing it now, right? As you're going to school now. And the reality is, physical violence is kind of done, right? Like in America, we don't really deal with it, right? Like it sparks up here and there, but it's basically we have the most safe. I don't know if you were aware of this, but like America has transformed on physical violence. It doesn't happen in schools. Exception is not the rule, right? Like the reality is 70, 80, not like I can tell you right now. I live close to school districts where one child strikes another child, one adult strikes another child, they just go to jail. It's that simple, right? Unless you're a celebrity like Will Smith, you can't strike another person, not in school or out of school, right? Physical violence is essentially, it is the barest exceptions now in America. Very rarely happens, right? And so physical violence has been handled in America with a few exceptions, right? So the reality is this word has no meaning today. And when they say nerd, they're saying genre-focused loser who can't get a date and got their books knocked out of their hand on the way to school, right? But the reality is, what that person is today in 2023 is a genre-focused winner who absolutely can get a date and has never had a book knocked out of their hand, right? That's the new definition, right? So what is that, right? Right now, that's just a sentence, right? I'm a genre-focused winner who absolutely got a date. I've been married for 30 years, right? And I do not get my books knocked out of my hand now. I did when I was young, right? So the reality is, what's the word for that? We don't need to talk about it. We're not replacing nerd. We're retiring it. All right, so here's how Dungeon Masters, in my humble opinion, save the world. The world desperately needs the ability to retire a word, not wait for it to fall into antiquation. Okay? So here we go. All right, here's how we do it. So we go out with our friends to eat wings, right? And it's a mixed group. We got our Muggle friends and we got our D&D friends there, right? Because we all went to the new D&D Honor Among Thieves, right? And so Sally says, oh my gosh, that was so great. I really love that. I just finished the latest Brandon Sanderson book, and these things I thought were similar to it. I cannot wait to see this movie again. Okay? D&D friend, right? Then Rachel says, I liked it. It was funny, but there's a lot of nerd stuff up in there. Right? And then you will say, oh, I'm sorry, Sally. That word is retired. And she's going to say, what? Nerd, it is retired. It no longer is a functioning word. You shouldn't use it. Are you saying it's appropriate or inoffensive? No, it's retired. It no longer functions, right? Its old definition was genre-focused loser who couldn't get a date and got their books knocked out of their hand when they went to school. That's not the case anymore. The person you're describing with the word nerd is actually a genre-focused winner who absolutely can get a date and never got their books and is not getting their books knocked out of their hand. Not any of their books. It's retired. And then Rachel's going to be like, you saying I can't use the word? Yes, that's correct. It's retired. What makes you determine that you can tell me a word is retired? I'm a dungeon master. I have standing. We own the word nerd. We were the first to have it applied to us, and we had it applied most frequently, most critically, right? And in the most complex manners, right? We have standing on the word nerd. And I'm telling you right now, it's retired. You can't use it anymore. Then Rachel's like, hey, it's not appropriate for you to tell me what I can and cannot say. And say, I've told you the word's retired. If you want to continue to be repugnant, if you want to use words that really should not be used today, and use things that only deliver confusion, you can do that, right? But I'm telling you now, the word's retired. And I can tell you right now, there's going to be silence at that table, right? And this is going to take courage, right? But you don't change the world. You don't fix the world. You don't bring harm and flourishment without courage. Every single word of that is my humble opinion. What's important is when I get to hear your humble opinion, when you get in the comments and send your traffic. Please consider liking and subscribing, and have a wonderful millennium.